Thanks to NordVPN for sponsoring today's video. "We must walk without rhythm," Paul said, and he called up memory of men walking the sand, both prescient memory and real memory. "Watch how I do it," he said. "This is how Fremen walk the sand." In Frank Herbert's 1965 epic sci-fi novel, Dune, the deserts of Arrakis were a dangerous place. Blisteringly hot during the day, covering almost the entire planet, and hiding terrifying, monstrous worms that would swallow you up at a moment's notice. Only by traversing it with erratic movement could you hope to make it across safely, and only by understanding it could you expect to survive. This would prove very relevant to the Perseverance rover as it moved to enter the next phase of its mission. Because although Mars is not quite Arrakis, there are many similarities. Mars too is a place of rock and sand. Beneath its surface may lurk signs of alien life, although more likely fossilized than alive. And just like Paul Atreides, Perseverance would need to move just right to prevent the desert sands from encroaching on its mission in a way that would spell disaster like never before. I'm Alex McColgan and you're watching Astrum. Join with me as we examine the months of September 2021 to January 2022 in Perseverance's journey in the 4th episode of this series. And today we will be looking at Perseverance's trip into truly dangerous terrain, Saitar, a place which means among the sands. Perseverance and NASA were celebrating their first successful collection of a rock sample on Mars. The rover had come to Mars for the express purpose of finding samples of alien life beneath the planet's surface, trapped in the rocks that made up Mars. However, this task had not proved easy. It was only after the better part of a year that Perseverance managed to successfully collect that first vital sample. This had partly been because it had been helping to test its companion, the smaller drone Ingenuity. It was the first helicopter on Mars, a drone that would prove invaluable to its mission going forward. And it was partly because of the pitfalls of Martian geology, as the first core it tried to collect had crumbled to dust before it could be captured. Thankfully, the second core was a lot more fruitful, and Perseverance was able to fill the first of its 30 different sample tubes. This was swiftly followed by a third and fourth core, both taken from the rock Rochette in early September. At that point, sadly, it had to take a pause for solar conjunction. Due to the arrangement of our solar system, Mars and Earth do not always have a line of sight on each other. Sometimes they are on opposite sides of the solar system. This increases the lag time it takes for NASA to send and receive messages from Perseverance, but that is not the worst problem. When Mars and Earth are perfectly opposite each other, communication between the planets becomes completely impossible. For one simple reason: the sun. No radio signal can penetrate this cosmological giant. As such, there was little scientists could do but wait for these orbital bodies to move apart. Perseverance has advanced AI on board, but it still needs to check in with NASA from time to time to plan its route, update its mission, and report back its findings. So it wasn't until November 2021 that things could really get going again. But NASA was not idle during this solar conjunction. By the time Perseverance was powered up again, the NASA scientists had already thoroughly worked out its next objective. In Jezero crater, there is a dune field known as Saitar. In amongst these dunes, there is a series of outcroppings that were of particular interest to Perseverance's mission, due to the many different layers of exposed rock they gave access to. These different layers likely represented different geological eras, which would give scientists the clearest picture of the history of Jezero, as well as giving them an opportunity to find life itself. Outcroppings are of particular interest because Perseverance's drilling equipment only allows it to dig several centimeters deep. If it wasn't for outcroppings, where erosion had exposed these layers to the Martian atmosphere, Perseverance would not have access to them. However, sand dunes are of particular danger to a rover like Perseverance. With help an entire solar system away, if Perseverance was to start wheel spinning in a section of particularly loose dune, it would likely spell the end of its mission, much like it did for the Spirit rover in 2009. As such, Perseverance's trusty sidekick Ingenuity was sent in to conduct some preliminary reconnaissance. If it could find a route through the sand dunes that looked safe, Perseverance could get its sample tubes to the vital outcroppings of Saita. Ingenuity began its scouting before the solar conjunction and flew for several flights from September through to December. Flying at a height of 10 meters, these reconnaissance expeditions allowed scientists to pick out the perfect route. Perseverance set off in early November 2021, beginning its exploration of the dunes. It picked its way carefully, being sure not to travel too fast in case it fell into any unforeseen sand trap. It moved between dunes that were a meter high, finding the flattest path. But thankfully, Ingenuity had led it true. Perseverance was able to make it to the protruding rock known as Brack. Now that it had its technique down, Perseverance quickly was able to obtain new samples. Deciding to call the first empty sample container at Brack an atmosphere sample, these next two samples were officially Perseverance's 5th and 6th sample tubes and their 3rd and 4th rock samples. From these accumulated samples, scientists were able to make an unexpected discovery. These were not sedimentary rocks as had first been anticipated. Instead, Perseverance had discovered the igneous rock, olivine. Olivine is a type of rock that can actually be found here on Earth, for instance in parts of Australia. Unlike sedimentary rocks, which are made by particles of sand and other detritus slowly accumulating on top of each other over time, an igneous rock like olivine is formed by the cooling of magma. As such, it seems that at one time or another, Jezero crater must have been witness to some volcanic activity. While this might initially seem to be bad news, you might correctly conclude that not much life could be found in magma. Scientists could discern signs of water erosion on the rocks. The ridges at the ends of the crater showed signs of water motion. Whatever volcanic activity had happened here, the water that created Jezero's delta must have come after it had already cooled. As such, the presence of igneous rocks was actually good news. Igneous rock is usually very high in minerals. This is why the areas around volcanoes are so fertile. The presence of water and high mineral count rocks could have been the perfect conditions for life. All in all, Perseverance's mission seemed to be going well. But Mars was not done with it. The desert does not give up its prey quite so easily. On Wednesday the 29th of December, on the return journey out of Saita, Perseverance stopped to take another sample from another rock outcropping known as Isol, specifically from a small stone known as Rubion. Initially, things seemed to go well. Perseverance cored its target rock with no issue. It placed its core in a test tube. But when it came to transferring the test tube into the bit carousel on the rover chassis, it hit an unexpected resistance. Something was blocking the tube from entering the carousel. Perseverance immediately stopped its process when it detected the anomaly and sent a request to NASA asking what it should do next. Through week-long exchanges, NASA was able to use Perseverance's cameras to peer inside the carousel. Staring back at them were 4 small pebbles. Now, this might not seem like a big deal, but pebbles that stop samples from being stored inside the rover would put a halt to Perseverance's entire sample collection mission. It was likely that these rocks had somehow fallen out of the tube during that specific sample collection, possibly once again because of the unexpectedly crumbly nature of Martian rocks. Rocks falling apart had already cost Perseverance 1 sample. Now they might spell the end of the whole mission. This is crazy to think about if you imagine a human standing next to the rover who could easily flick the rocks away. It's something so simple for us, but next to impossible for a robot not designed for it. But the Perseverance team had a plan for situations like this, and carefully the rover began to enact it. Firstly, Perseverance started by taking photos of the ground below it. It wanted to see what was there already, so that once the pebbles were spilled out onto the floor, scientists could count the new arrivals and make sure that they matched up with what had previously been seen inside the carousel. Secondly, it did something it had never been designed to do. It emptied out its core sample tube onto the floor. It must have been with regret that this was done. However, it was important to know how much was left inside the tube to see how much was likely in the carousel. Also, this would allow a fresh ISOL sample to be taken later, maximizing its sample space efficiency. Thirdly, Perseverance began to do the only thing remaining it could do. It started to wiggle. By rotating its carousel, it was able to dislodge 2 of the 4 offending pebbles right then and there. By double-checking the floor afterwards, scientists were able to detect both pebbles, now no longer along for the ride. But this still left 2 pebbles remaining, and these were proving to be stubborn, not falling out with the carousel's rotation. So, Perseverance took things up a notch. It began driving away, searching for a spot where the slope was steeper. The plan was to position Perseverance at an angle, leaning forward so that gravity could start to pull on the last 2 pebbles. Its sturdy base meant that this could be done with relative safety, although tipping over would have been a disaster, so scientists would be careful not to pick a place that was too steep. A suitable location was just a short 5 meters away. Perseverance drove there and arrived at its location, only to make a surprising discovery. The other 2 rocks had vanished. Initially cautious and then elated, the NASA team deduced that the rumbling of Perseverance across the Citus sands had caused the rocks to shift and then fall out. They made sure to carefully test their equipment, making sure that the tubes could be correctly docked again. And only once everything was proven to be functional did they claim success. Perseverance was ready to go again. This may seem like a short drama, but my telling of the story might have been misleading. It was the 29th of December that Perseverance first picked up these stowaways. It was only on the 27th of January 2022, an entire month later, that the rocks were completely confirmed to be gone. This is because when you've spent millions of dollars getting a piece of hardware to another planet, care is always the watchword of the day. Although it sometimes takes weeks to plot out how to overcome a challenge, it's usually worth it for the longevity of the mission. Thanks to some careful decision making and moving correctly across the desert, Perseverance's mission could now continue. Having successfully collected its samples and overcome yet another challenge, it made its way out from among the sands. Troublesome stowaways aren't just limited to something physical, but unwanted spyware and viruses on our computers can be a real pain for us on Earth. Not only does NordVPN hide all information that passes between your device and a public network, meaning it cannot be seen by a hacker, but I particularly like their new threat protection feature, which goes a step further than hiding your activity and actively identifies malware-ridden files, prevents you from landing on scam websites, and gets rid of irritating ads and trackers. Also, being a VPN means you can log into the internet as if you were anywhere in the world. Great for when you go on holiday and find yourself region locked. Their product has great reviews and the servers are super fast, but importantly, NordVPN is essential for your security online. So click the link nordvpn.com/Astrum in the description and get a 2-year plan plus 1 month for free. Click nordvpn.com/Astrum and enjoy a 30-day money-back guarantee. It's worth having a look. Thanks for watching, and thanks to my patrons and members for supporting the channel. If you found value in this video and want to support while also having your name added to this list, check the links below. Also, sharing, subscribing and liking really go a long way to help me make more videos in the future. All the best, and see you next time.